You enter a dungeon. It's dark, and you can't hear anything, because your DM is ever clever. But you, the even cleverer player, know your dungeon master. And they have some terrible trap or obstacle lying in wait. Maybe it's some shambling skeletons, scimitars drawn eager for blood. Maybe it's some caustic acid pit that's just waiting to dissolve your magic carpet. But it's okay, because you've got skills, 18 of them to be exact, and you can use these ability skills in a variety of ways to make sure you're not bested by your DM. We're breaking down these 18 skills on today's Handbooker Helper.
Don't know how to play? We'll show you the way. Handbooker Helper. Handbooker Helper.
You know those 6 ability scores? Well, those have skills associated with them that your character may or may not be quite good at. Pretty much anything your character attempts during the game, whether it's scrambling up a wall or lying through your teeth, is determined through these skills with what's called an ability check. And there are a lot of them, so saddle up, we're rampaging through them. To start, under the strength ability, we have athletics. This skill is used in the game a lot, and typically covers those tricky, protracted physical challenges you might come up against, like, say, climbing up a sheer cliff face or trying to swim against a strong current. These checks can also include smaller actions like attempting a long or complicated jump or like chopping down a tree. Under the dexterity ability, we have a few different skills to examine. First up, acrobatics. This is another skill that comes up a lot in gameplay. Most players, and rightfully so, might associate this skill with performing spectacular feats of acrobatic prowess, like doing a double backflip before throwing your daggers at those ugly, shambling skeletons. But acrobatics is also used to do something like staying upright on a rocking ship's deck when it's under attack by a kraken, or something even more simple like trying not to slip on ice. Moving on, let's say you're trying to do something like steal an NPC's coin purse, or maybe you want to plant evidence because you're about to be caught by the Queen's Guard. This all falls under sleight of hand skills. You need dexterous, nimble fingers if you want to pull off your klepto lifestyle. Last for dexterity is stealth. This one is pretty self-explanatory. If you're trying to hide from a hungry beast or slip past a band of mercenaries or sneak up on someone, the more light on your feet you are, the better you'll do when the DM says, roll for stealth. Let's move to intelligence, which has 5 different skills. First up, let's say your party comes across some ancient magical runes on a doorway, and you wish to recall the nature of the enchantment. That's an Arcana check. You should note this is not about casting spells, it's about remembering lore about magic, magical places, and magical creatures. However, perhaps the writing on that doorway isn't magical, but is an elven inscription describing the royal family buried in the tomb. Your DM is going to ask you to make a history check, which covers knowledge of legendary people, events, kingdoms, etc. You just might remember the nature of the curse that felled the family buried within. However, perhaps the writing around the door isn't describing magic or history, but is instead describing a local deity or some religious rite that must be performed before entering the tomb. That would be a religion check, which covers recalling knowledge about things like holy symbols, secret cults, prayers, and holy scripture, and so on. However, perhaps the door you're trying to enter is covered in some ominous flora and fauna that most of your party doesn't recognize. But you, the ranger of your group, specialize in the knowledge of plants, animals, and weather. That's a nature check, revealing that the strange plants are carnivorous and looking quite hungry. And finally, still with intelligence, we have investigation, and this check may come into play quite a bit. Anytime you want to deduce the meaning of a clue or seek hidden details unnoticed by the eyes and ears, investigation check. Want to figure out if there's a hidden panel in a room? Investigation check. What sort of weapon made that wound? Investigation check. Can I figure out how to trigger that trap without being hurt? Investigation check. Now, shifting to wisdom-based skills. Let's say you need to buy a cloak of invisibility. You enter the shop and the shopkeeper is acting suspicious. So you want to determine if they are hiding something from you. This would be an insight check. Or you decide to look around the shop for hidden objects or some thieves lying in wait for your sweet, sweet loot. That's a perception check, which means a general awareness of your surroundings and the people or creatures with whom you're interacting. Let's say you discover nothing particularly threatening, but you do knock over a ceramic jar containing a venomous snake, and it is angry. You may need to try out your animal handling skills to try and calm that snake down. Heck, you may even make it your friend if you roll good enough. This skill is generally used to determine if you can calm a domesticated animal down or for controlling your mount to pull off a risky move. Now, let's say you aren't that good with snakes and it bites your friend. This is where you would perform a medicine check to see if there are some nearby herbs to help slow the poison, and if not, a medicine check can also help stabilize a dying friend from slipping closer to their doom. Finally, in wisdom, we have survival. I like to think of it this way. If a Girl Scout or Boy Scout would learn this to earn a merit badge, it's probably a survival check. Following tracks, finding and gathering berries and food, avoiding natural hazards on the road, or navigating your friends through dangerous terrain outdoors is survival. And finally, we arrive at the charisma ability. First up, deception. This one may seem obvious, and that's because it is. Anytime you are trying to hide the truth in any way, it's deception. Want to lie to a guard that you're his long-lost brother? Deception. Want to pass your street urchin self as a well-learned noble at a gala? Deception. The other end of this spectrum would be persuasion, which covers you anytime you try and influence another character or situation through your social graces, honest appeals, or just overall good nature. Trying to negotiate diplomatic immunity for your adventuring party? Persuasion. Want to convince a shopkeeper that you could purchase a healing potion for cheap at the merchant next door? Persuasion. But let's say persuasion doesn't really work, but you really need that healing potion. You can try intimidation, which is like persuasion, but with a lot more hostility and menace. Want to break a bottle and use the sharp glass to threaten the shopkeeper to just give you the potion? Intimidation. Want to try and pry information from a soldier loyal to the enemy? Intimidation. Don't forget, there is a variant rule that your DM might allow where you can use your strength instead of charisma for intimidation because scary muscles. And finally, for our last skill check, maybe you wish to gain some favor, earn some coin, or draw attention by performing an awe-inspiring dance or recite a monologue from Tusk Love. That would fall under the auspices of performance check. If your aim is to entertain, it's performance. That's all 18 of our skill checks. If you want to synergize your skill set and make the most of your character background, ask your dungeon master about tool proficiencies. Xanathar's Guide to Everything offers DMs a few helpful guidelines for specific applications of tool proficiencies like added benefits, situational advantages, and so on. And now, I take my leave. Thanks for going on this journey with us through the various skillful activities that your character can partake in at the table. Now you can roll with advantage on your intelligence checks as they relate to Handbooker Helper.
Handbooker Helper.
Handbooker Helper.